Hi everyone, before we get into the video, just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. I've officially changed the channel name from Aqua Room Studios to Room Temp Beer. The reasoning? One, because I felt like it, and two, because I felt that Aqua Room Studios, as much as I liked the name, was a little too impersonal, and I get, this is basically just an outlet for me to yap and, just do random stuff on. So I feel like because of that, the channel's name should be a little bit more personal, and I like Room Temp Beer. I use that handle for other things as well, so I decided let's just keep things streamlined and simple. So this channel's name is now officially Room Temp Beer. That's all. Let's get into the video. So, the Peacemaker Season 2 finale, the one that's been hyped up on social media by James Gunn and by the rest of the cast for a week. Since the show started, actually, James Gunn has been saying the last 3 episodes were crazy, insane, and now that's the first issue that we have. First, okay, that's the biggest issue, but we'll get into that later. Let's talk about what worked and what didn't work with this episode. So starting off with what I liked, I really enjoyed that sequence of the Argus agents getting brutalized in the different dimensions. Not so much of them going into those dimensions, but them getting wheeled out, missing limbs, missing faces, people crying and screaming that, my friends are dying. I think that really hammered home the point of, the government's corrupt and what Flag is doing is wrong. I still have issues with that sequence, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Another thing that I really liked was the conversation between Adebayo and her wife Kia, or I guess now ex-wife. Basically, Adebayo goes over to her house and says, for the final time, this isn't working. We have to stop trying to make this work. And it's really tender sequence, and both of them are acting their asses off. I think that's a great sequence. I've seen some complaints online that moment didn't feel earned, and that Adebayo's whole grief with her wife is the back end of character arcs in the show. And while that's true, it still is an art. It is mentioned in the background when in literally just an episode ago in that conversation with Judo Master, they're having a discussion about her wife. So I think this, kind of putting a bow on this and having Adebayo move forward and away from her old life, finally, I think it's a really great moment. And I do think that Danielle Brooks and I don't know the other actress's name, but I think they both did an amazing job in that sequence, and that the only thing in the episode that surpasses that is Chris's intervention when the 11th Street kids all get together at the rundown motel that Chris is staying at, and they talk some sense into him. I love the sequence where Vigilante tackles Chris and tases him. That's so fucking funny. But what really, caught my attention is, again, the dynamic kind of movement and blocking of the sequence. James Gunn has mentioned that in the podcast, where blocking is really important to him, and you clearly see it when you watch an episode of the show. And the way the camera's moving, it's a handheld for most of the season. But what I really enjoyed is, I'm not sure if this was intentional. I haven't seen the newest podcast episode, so I don't know if this was a plan or not. But in episode 6, when Harcourt and Chris are talking, Chris dragged a chair from across the room and sits down in front of Harcourt, and the camera moves in on them. And that's a really cool moment, and one that James Gunn talked about in the podcast for that episode. And Adebayo does something very similar here. She grabs a chair, slides it towards Chris, and then sits down right in front of him and really, lets it all out. And I think that moment is beautiful. I think Danielle Brooks carried this fucking episode. I think she's an incredible actress. I haven't seen Orange is the New Black or anything else she's been in. I think the Color Purple, I think she's in as well, but I haven't seen any of that stuff. So this is my first kind of exposure to her work, and she's incredible. She's amazing. She carries that sequence. I mean, Cena does an amazing job, and they're all there. They're all we're with you, man. It's okay. The things you've done in the past, we forgive you. We love you. Let's keep working together. Let's keep being a family. And I just think that's a really beautiful moment, and puts a bow on his arc, and finally accepting who he is as a person, and all of their arcs, because Emilia has the end of her emotional arc with Chris. Economos has been a pussy for most of the season, and he's slowly become better and better. Even if he's not the best at what he's doing, he's become a more brave person. And I also enjoyed the flashbacks with Chris and Harcourt. I think those were really heartfelt. And they have great chemistry. It's weird to say because she's married to James Gunn. So I don't know how to feel about that, but I mean, clearly James Gunn is fine with it. So I don't know. But no, they have great chemistry, and I really enjoyed that sequence. And I had a smile on my face while watching it. So And we finally learned what happens on the boat, and we learned that it did mean something. So I think that payoff was also worth it. The big one, checkmate. Checkmate has been formed. I honestly did not see the 11th Street Kids forming checkmate. I didn't see that as something that would happen. It was been foreshadowed the whole season with Adebayo trying to create like a security consulting firm. And I think that this group of people forming this organization, I know in the comics they do some shady stuff, but I'm hoping that this is like the anti-Argus, you know, in a way. I'm not too familiar with the comics origin stuff, except that Bordeaux was intimately involved with them. But I'm glad to see that this is how it's formed, and I paused it and had like a moment of, oh shit, okay, cool. I enjoyed that reveal, and that they're all working together. One of my favorite parts about that sequence was Flurry and Vigilante, not the duo that I knew I needed, but very glad that they'll be hopefully paired up in future seasons a bit more. Now, let's talk about the cliffhanger. I think they're adapting the Salvation Run. If you're not familiar, that's a run where in the comics, like, the government starts sending metahuman supervillains into like this planet called Planet Salvation, and it's like a free-for-all battle royale amongst the villains there, and they have to survive. And it's revealed that that planet, Planet Salvation, is actually a training ground used for Darkseid's parademons. So if this is a backdoor into Darkseid, first of all, really early, like this is like the second or third main DCU property, and we're already kind of Darkseid adjacent. So I'm not sure how to feel about that. And also, a lot of the characters in that run have not been formally introduced yet. So I'm just wondering if they're planning to adapt it like how the comics did, then how are we doing that? Although from the vibe I'm getting is like Flag eventually plans to imprison every metahuman there, like not just metahuman villains, like every metahuman. I'm not sure if that's how it's going, but the way he's kind of given the briefing and the way, I mean, this is clearly Lex's plan that Flag is just carrying out. And Lex would want every metahuman there, not just the villains. So I'm curious to see how that's going to be handled. Now, what doesn't work for me is how cartoonishly evil Flag is now. Like, he was, for most of the season, he was like a guy that maybe you rooted for. You felt for him, and you were like, okay, man, maybe some people wanted him to get his revenge, you know? But now he's just like a mustache twirling guy that's fucking frat bros with all of Lex's goons, drinking and laughing with them while his men and women are dying like a couple feet away from him. It's so jarring. And I guess it's supposed to show you that Argus is evil and Flag is like on the wrong side of things, but we kind of already knew that. So I really do wonder why, like, it would have been one thing if he's working with Luthor, but it's like, it's clear that he doesn't really want to, but he's doing it because he wants to get back at Peacemaker. But this just feels like it's not something you would do. It feels kind of out of character for him, especially that montage with all the spinning and the laughing and the drinking. I don't know. It's very odd. And it's not really explained. So yeah, I took a bit of an issue with that. I felt like it was a mischaracterization of Flag as a person. But we'll see where his character grows in future projects, I suppose. And this is like, alright, this is one of the things that people are taking a big issue with. And I wouldn't say it's a big issue with me, but it is kind of strange. It's the music videos. Let's be honest. There are 2 music videos taken that are filmed in the exact same spot with, I'm assuming, the exact same people. And it's just really pace breaking, kind of distracting, because like the first one with Chris and Harcourt on the boat, that one's fine. It's showing like the mood they were in, like the kind of environment they were in when that happened. Tensions, not tensions, but like, you know, they were buzzed. They were probably feeling a lot of things at once. The music was probably washing over them. And so, okay, cool. Makes sense. Do I think that sequence also lasted a bit too long? Yes. But whatever. Okay, it works. Then we get Foxy Shazam singing the entire opening of the show. And don't get me wrong, I'm a sucker for the opening of the show used at the end of an episode. Animes do that all the time, and I love when they do that. And the actual montage at the end isn't bad, but it's the constant cutting back to Foxy Shazam, and like the weird, like they're filming it like it's a music video, and it just goes on for so long. And I feel like all that space could have been used to do literally anything else. Like, I don't know what, but I feel like it's kind of, I mean, again, I'll say one thing. Did I enjoy that entire sequence? Not that much. Did a lot of other people not enjoy it? Also not that much. But is it unabashedly a James Gunn montage? Yes, because we know how much he loves Sleazewalk. We know how much he loves Foxy Shazam. We know how much he loves this episode. Getting to film with two bands that he really likes, and basically making a music video with them, like, he would enjoy that, and he would probably be very hyped to share that with people. We'll get into how he's hyping up episodes later, but I just think that that could have been that time frame could have been used a bit more, and it felt like very jarring because we're in the middle of like this. We're in the middle of like character beats and emotion and like progressing the plot, and it's like, okay, here's 5 minutes of Foxy Shazam just singing the song that you've been hearing this entire season anyways, and you get to see them do it, and it's like, okay, sure. It's like, I don't hate it. And it is very James Gunn, and I know why he loves this episode now. But I didn't really. I was just like, okay, can we like move on now? I was just like, oh, 6 minutes left in the episode. Like, what are they doing now? And then like, I don't know. I wasn't a huge fan. Let's just say that much. Do I care that much? No. Some people are taking huge offense to this. Like, the big cameo was Foxy Shazam. For if anyone thought that there were gonna be big cameos like Superman or like Lex Luthor again or like Batman, like, you were kidding yourselves. Like, that was never gonna happen. I don't know why people are so obsessed with cameos. Like, the same people that say, "Oh, meaningless cameos don't do anything for the story," when the episode is actually about the story and the plot. Then they're like, "Where are the cameos? Where's this and where's that?" Like, bro, that's not what the story's about. Calm down. And anyone that was expecting like a big, huge action sequence or like CGI bullshit, like, that's never what this season was about. And if you expected that to happen at any point, like, I remember when episode 7 came out and people were like, "Oh my god, Nazi Superman's gonna show up," and then they were like, "Oh man, missed opportunity." I was like, Nazi Superman's not gonna show up in this season. Calm down. Anyways, let's get back on track. I don't think I needed that many needle drops in the episode. Especially there was one needle drop that was like very short, and it was like when Bordeaux, Harcourt, and Adebayo meet up, and Adebayo's pacing back and forth and explaining what I'm assuming is checkmate to Bordeaux and Harcourt, and it's like a minute of her pacing back and forth, and Bordeaux being like, yeah, yeah, and then it's just like a song in the background. I'm not sure which song, but it was a topical song. Like, the lyrics were topical, but that sequence just felt jarring and kind of pace breaking, and that's how I feel about a lot of this episode. Jarring and pace breaking, unfortunately. I do think, okay, let's get into my main criticisms. And my main criticisms are actually not about the episode itself. I think the episode on its own is actually fine. Like, it's good. It's a decent episode of this show with, great character moments and an intriguing plot. But I think the biggest issue that I had was actually with James Gunn and how he's been managing expectations. On the podcast, online, everywhere, he's been saying, "Oh, this episode's like the best thing I've ever done in my life. Oh, this episode's amazing. This is like the craziest thing of all time." And for him, I see how that's the case. He got to hang out with all of his friends. He got to shoot like these really impactful, emotional moments. He got to make 2 music videos with I forget the first band's name, but with Foxy Shazam and another sleaze-rock band that he likes. And clearly, James Gunn would think this is the most fun I've ever had. This is the greatest thing I've ever done. Of course, he would think that, but not a lot of other people would think that. So the fact that he's been for the last 8 weeks been going, "Oh yeah, like, this is the shit. Like, this is my best work. This is my magnum opus." And then obviously it's not a cameo fest with a lot of action sequences and like a super compelling story flow. I think the structure was weird. I think he needs to do a better job of managing expectations. I enjoy how he's so kind of interactive with fans and really talks to them and explains what his thoughts on the work is. But I do think that he needs to stop just going on there and being like, "Yeah, this stuff's amazing. Like, everyone's gonna love this. This is gonna be the greatest thing ever." Like, that's what it felt like he was doing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people that have my expectations super high and was like, "Oh, this is gonna be like the greatest piece of fiction to ever exist." I didn't think that, but I did walk away like, that's what he was hyping Okay, sure, like, I guess. Meanwhile, a lot of other people were expecting, like, top 10 superhero comic book moments of all time, and that just wasn't what this was. It was, an end to character arcs and a setup for the future. Now, that's another thing I take issue with. James Gunn, had established that every project would be kind of self-contained, and they'd be interconnected, sure, but self-contained, and that you wouldn't have to watch one to watch the other. And I think he fell into a bit of a trap here, because this is clear setup for Man of Tomorrow and other things in the future. And now, obviously, he does have a universe to set up, so I'm not saying there should be no setup. Like, the Lex Luthor moment in episode 6, I believe it was episode 6. That was a good setup moment, and I foresaw Man of the Future. I foresaw Man of Tomorrow in that moment. But then he has a whole setup. He has a whole setup episode at the end of the season, a whole setup epilogue. And again, was the epilogue decent? Yeah, but people are gonna have to watch Peacemaker. People are gonna have to watch that last episode and possibly the whole season to then understand, like, Man of Tomorrow, or like the setup for Man of Tomorrow at the very least. And I feel like that goes back on his promise to make things kind of self-contained. And don't get me wrong, 7 out of 8 episodes of the season, self-contained. Their own little thing, in their own little pocket of the DC universe. This last episode feels like a million different things, all of it is set up. And I'm fine with it, because I'm going to watch all of the shit that they put out for this universe anyways, because I'm just glad that the DC universe has decent content now. But I don't know. I just don't feel very strongly about this when like, the last 2 episodes almost had me, like, tearing up and crying because of, like, the heartfelt emotion. And again, this episode has its moments, but I just didn't feel like it kind of went out on, like, a whimper a little bit instead of a bang. And that cliffhanger at the end is just, like, not the bang that people... It's not the bang that I think he wanted it to be. It's kind of just like, oh, now I have to wait 3 years to find out what happened to Peacemaker. And I really do like Peacemaker now. Like, I'm shocked to say it, but that's the problem. James Gunn is good at his job. He made me care about Peacemaker, who was like a fucking nothing character for me. And now I'm like, oh shit, well, now I have to wait either until Man of Tomorrow or possibly even further in the future to find out what's going on over there and how they're planning to adapt Salvation and all this other stuff. But anyways, I do think people had their expectations too high for this episode, but I also think James Gunn needs to, like, pull back a little bit when it comes to hyping things up for the future. Obviously, he's the boss. He'll do whatever he wants. Was this still a decent season of television? Yes, it was. I'll say one thing. It was heartfelt and cheesy, and I'm glad we're getting back to that era of comic book storytelling. But I think things can be cheesy and heartfelt without also feeling like random and kind of just like, what are we doing here, Which I feel like there was a good amount of both of those things. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Let me know how you felt about the finale in the comments section. Let me know how you feel about the new channel name. And I'll be talking more about stuff in the future, I guess. I will talk to you and see you all in the next video. Peace out.